So let's go ahead and let's build our own data model today. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new data model. I'm going to call it my best customers. Okay, so I'm going to create my best customers model. We call them a virtual cube. And here I have my blank canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and now pull some data onto this canvas to start to model it. Once I model it, I'm going to then explore it with Tableau and Excel. So that will be in a few minutes. So the first thing I said is that I'm first going to look at my data sources. And what I mentioned to you is that I'm using BigQuery today for this demonstration. So what I'm doing is I'm actually looking at all my data on BigQuery. And I'm looking at, and I see that I have a sales log. So this is just a table in BigQuery that has all my sales. And if I double click it, what I can do is I can see exactly a little preview of what that looks like. So you can see I have my orders. I have my sales reasons. I have things like product info, my order quantities. I have my dates, my currency, all the stuff that you would normally expect to see on customer sales. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag over my order quantity column from my Google data set, and I'm going to call it order quantity, and I'm going to put it into a folder. So what AtScale is going to do in this case is we're creating that semantic layer. So we changed that lowercase order quantity column name into something that's a little more human readable. I chose to, and AtScale figured this out, to sum all my orders as I aggregate them. So that will happen automatically. And I decided to put that order quantity into a folder called sales metrics. So now if I look at my preview, I have my very first measure. There's sales metrics as a folder and my order quantity. Folders are very important too in terms of organizing your metrics and your dimensions. So that's another part of that semantic layer, is just how you organize your metadata. Now, we talked about conform dimensions and how important that was for consistency. So let's go and let's pull onto our canvas some of my conform dimensions. And in AtScale speak, we have a library for those. So remember I talked about my date dimension. Well, there's all my different hierarchies. I have a week hierarchy, I got a month hierarchy, I got a retail 445 hierarchy. I got lots of different ways of drilling down and sorting by time. I also have my customer dimension, and I'll pull that. And I'll also pull on for this demonstration, my product dimension. Okay, so I have my dimensions on my canvas. So now how do I use these conform dimensions for this model? Well, it's very easy because I can just take these keys and link them up to my model here. So I'll take my customer key and I'll start with the customer, since the customer is very important in today's demo. And what I'm seeing is I'm creating a relationship between my sales log table and my conform dimension called customer. Now, as soon as I did that relationship and I made that connection, what happened over here is you see in my dimensions, I actually have a bunch of information that came in on that customer, including my email and my Twitter username, which we're going to use later on. And you can see also that we have a location and a hierarchy for just where my customers live and where they buy. So how did that all happen just from that little relationship? Well, if I double click on customer dimension, what you can see is that the customer dimension comes from another table in Google BigQuery, dim customer, that has some keys. And it also has relationships to other hierarchies or other conform dimensions, like my location or geography dimension and my gender dimension. And my geography dimension has itself its own built-in data model. So you can see that I can build upon these objects, upon these different references, and all of a sudden I can build very complex conform dimensions, but make it very easy for a modeler to be able to attach those to new data sets. So let's do the same thing for product. And now in product, now you can see the product hierarchy has now been emulated right here in my metadata. And that's due dates. Dates are always tough. I have orders and I have shipping. I have order dates and I have ship dates. So I have lots of dates. Almost everything is a date. You could have dozens, hundreds of different things that you're measuring by time. So what I can do is I can just connect up my orders, and I can use what we call a role-playing dimension, and I'll do one for shipping too. So by doing that, now what I see over here under my date attributes folder is I see I have order date, and there's my hierarchies for order date as well as for ship date. So I have a pretty decent semantic model now. In today's data, as Jen mentioned, it's like, you have data that's coming from all over the place. Sometimes it's in columns, sometimes it's in JSON in columns. So I have some product information data that's actually key value pairs. It's JSON. So with AtScale, what I can do is I can actually explode out those columns or that nested data by just telling, in this case, AtScale, about what the keys are that I want to pull out for that JSON data. So I pulled out color and style, and I'll turn those into dimensions like so. So now I got a pretty good model here. I got my color and style, my products. One more thing before we go and start to explore this data. Let's define a drill through path. So what's a drill through path? I'm going to call it customer details. So a lot of times, Jen also mentioned that you need to be able to drill through or drill down. And for me, I sometimes need to see what those customer records look like to really figure out what's going on. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to pull in my customer name. Now, with this platform, if I didn't have the ability to see customer name, I wouldn't be able to do what we're doing here. I'm a super user, so I'm able to see my customer name as well as where they live. And for me, I'm going to create that view. Now, other people who, if they can't see that view, they're not going to be able to access it, even on a drill through. I'm also going to add my email and Twitter username, and I'm also going to, of course, put in how much they ordered and what they actually bought during each sale. So now I have a drill through. So I'll show you how I use that in a second. So we're now ready to go and explore this. So I'm going to go ahead and publish our best customers virtual cube, and just did that. And what I now have here is I have the ability to actually go and look at best customers. Best customers is now what we call a virtual cube. It's now a data model on top of my Google BigQuery data warehouse. So I didn't have to do any programming. I didn't have to do any ETL. All I'm doing now is logging in this case, into AtScale. That's my semantic layer. That's my semantic engine. I'm going to pull up that metadata and pull up that view that we just defined in AtScale Design Center. So remember all those folders here? So what you see is what you get. There's my sales metrics. Remember I had my order quantity and sales. Remember I had color and style. And you remember I had my product hierarchy. And I also had my customer and my customer geography hierarchies. So there it is. It's not tables and columns. There's no modeling I need to do in Tableau to do this. Let's look at it by products so we can see what we're dealing with here. Again, live query here. And what we see here is, let's just do by top. It looks like we have a sporting goods store, and our bikes are our most lucrative product right now, just based on sales amount. Remember, I created that in JSON, we had color and style as product attributes. Well, I can now just double click on color, and all of a sudden in BigQuery, it's going to run a BigQuery, and it's going to split out all my product sales and sales amount by color. Let's go ahead and click next here. I'm going to look at my best customers project, and there's my new best customers cube. So there it is right there. I just defined it literally 5 minutes ago. And I'll go ahead and I'll create a pivot report in this case. Now, what we're doing is that we're not exporting data into Excel. What we're doing is that we're actually running live queries and only pulling back the data that is needed in Excel. So by clicking on my metric, sales amount, and my color, now I have the product by color right here within my Excel spreadsheet. And this is all live data. So Jen also talked about how difficult, or the one thing to consider is how are you going to refresh your analysis? Well, to refresh my analysis, all I need to do is say data, refresh all, and everything will be refreshed here. And if I like, I can build a very rich model just by accessing these cell level data. So look at what I just did. That actually used this metric, my metadata, by color blue. And then now that is a separate cell that I can use in the midst of any of my other calculations. So this is a top 10 query that I'm doing here. Again, that's all against BigQuery. And I'll double click on customers so we can see who the heck they are. So there's my top 10 customers. You know what? I also want to look at just my top 10 customers. I want to be recent. So let's go and look at my my top 10 customers for my last year, for the last year. So let's look at 2020. 2020 has been a crazy year. So let's just look at 2020. So there we go. There's my top customers in 2020. And if I just go ahead and sort by them, this is my top customers by sales. But we may also want to be able to look at who, in terms of social influencers, might have actually influenced other people to buy in our web store. So for that, we can use Twitter. And in Twitter has a cool thing. They have an API that you can sign up for free. And you can also subscribe to what they call a fire hose. Or there's also a third option, which is a Twitter stream, which gives you a sampling of what people are saying. In this case, what I'm going to do is that my data scientist is going to calculate a sentiment score for this. So I could see that looks like Donald Trump is kind of mad here. So this is going to be a negative sentiment. And in other cases, there's a very happy sentiment there. So so I'm going to hand this over to my data scientist, and what they're going to do magically is that they're going to give me a list of my customers with Twitter handles, and whether there's a positive or negative sentiment, and then they're going to use that and look at the sales around that time, and to be able to figure out, they have to obviously mention our brand and be positive about our brand. And we're going to see if there's any lift that's attributed to that particular mention. And so my data scientist then has calculated what the lift is, or the sales lift, what was from that positive tweet from a particular customer. Now we're going to factor that lift into their sales so we can have a more complete view of their contribution. And so what I'm going to first do is that I'm going to go to my my Google BigQuery console here, and move my Zoom stuff out of the way. And I'm going to add that file that my data scientist gave me to Google. So how am I going to do that? I'm just going to go ahead and click the create button here, create table button. Google BigQuery has a really nice way of uploading data. Now I can upload, it's a CSV file that my data scientist gave me, and I can just go ahead and browse that file on my course, on my system here. And there's my sales lift CSV file. So all I have to do is reference that. What's really nice is that if I do auto detect schema, Google BigQuery will automatically create that table for me with that schema. So there's nothing more that I need to do. I do need to say what it is. So I'm going to call it social media sales lift, and that will be my table, and I'll say create table. So now what that's doing is it's uploading that table into Google BigQuery, and you can see that there it is. It actually did it. And here's my table. You can see there's customer key, Twitter username, my last tweet date, so I can know recency, and then there's my calculated sales lift. And so if I could do a preview, there's my preview of my data. So now I have my data in BigQuery, but it's not really consumable until I integrate it with my data model. So let's do that now. So we're going to go back to in this case, we're going to go back to our Twitter data here. I'm sorry, our our data in BigQuery, and you can see there's that new table I just added, social media sales lift. So I'm just going to pull it onto my canvas just like that. So there's my data, and again, if I want to look at and do a preview of it, we could see it here. And there's what I just added, literally two minutes ago. So then, how am I going to use it? Well, I now have a multi-fact model, and well, all I need to do is connect up my customer key to my customer dimension, like so. And then I'll take my last tweet date and connect that up to my date dimension. And I'm going to prefix it with order. And now I've now unified my social media lift data with my sales data just by doing those clicks. So now let's calculate a new metric. See, I'm going to call it direct and indirect sales. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. I'm going to choose it to be it's a dollar amount, so I'll choose the formatting there. I'll go ahead and put it into my sales metrics folder, and I can type in my formula. So now that I have that, I can go ahead and republish that virtual cube or republish that model, which now will make that new metric available to anybody who wants to use it. So let's go back to Tableau, and let me see here my my existing report. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate that because I'm going to change it. And I'm going to go ahead and cause Tableau to do a refresh, and watch what happens as I do that refresh. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to show me my brand new metric, and there it is, direct and indirect sales. So now I'm going to go ahead and replace that simple metric with my direct and indirect sales, and it's going to recalculate my users and my best users. So you can see that Larry is tough to beat. Larry still is my top customer, but what you can see is that my other customers have definitely changed, and in terms of what they shifted based on my new direct and indirect sales metric. So there you go. What I've just been able to do is come back and sort of pull it all together here. Is it using a multi-dimensional data model? I've been able to really show you how we can do have some real agility, and at the same time promote consistency and also security. Remember all that customer PII data in one single place, whether it be Tableau or you're building extensive models in Excel. Everybody's going to get the same answer, and they're going to get it at the same time, with the same refresh frequency, with the same security attributes. And with BI and ML, BI and AI together, I actually got to see how I could augment my intelligence. I took my MVC and I made it better. And I combined my first party data, my direct sales, with some third party data, just by going and using social media free APIs to augment my customer profiles with their social media behavioral data.